A lot of people, they ask me after I've performed, they come up to me and they ask, hey, you didn't look nervous at all up there. Wow, how do you do it? Or do you still get nervous? Or do you still get stage fright when you're up on stage? And the answer is yes, I do.
At just 4 years old, Angelica Hale's life nearly ended before it ever had a chance to begin. What started as an ordinary childhood illness spiraled into a full-blown medical catastrophe that doctors believed she wouldn't survive. It began with a case of pneumonia, severe, fast-moving, and merciless, that quickly escalated into sepsis, sending her body into toxic shock. Her lungs collapsed, her organs began to shut down one by one, and she was rushed into the ICU, where she would remain for the next 80 days, much of it unconscious, attached to machines that were the only thing keeping her alive. Angelica's condition was so critical that she had to be placed on ECMO, an extreme form of life support typically used as a last resort. Her parents were told to prepare for the worst. For over a week, they lived minute by minute, not knowing whether their little girl would take another breath. But somehow, against all odds, Angelica pulled through. Though she emerged from that ordeal alive, her kidneys had been irreparably damaged. She would spend the next year and a half undergoing grueling dialysis treatments, all while waiting for a miracle. But that wasn't the only fight this young girl would face. As other children her age were learning to ride bikes and sing nursery rhymes, Angelica was learning to walk again and breathe without a machine. Her tiny body bore the marks of war, tubes, scars, machines, but inside, something fierce had survived. And yet, what no one could predict back then was that this fragile child, still recovering from near death, would one day walk onto one of the biggest stages in the world, stare down millions of viewers, and stun the world with a voice that no one saw coming. But that part of the story was still far off. First, she'd need a second chance at life, literally. What Angelica Hale endured between the ages of 4 and 6 would break most adults. Yet she survived it with a kind of quiet strength the world wouldn't recognize until years later. After contracting a vicious strain of bacterial pneumonia, her condition deteriorated with terrifying speed. Within days, the infection spread through her bloodstream, triggering full-body sepsis and sending her into septic shock. Her lungs stopped working, her heart strained, her kidneys completely shut down. Doctors rushed to place her on ECMO, an aggressive form of life support reserved for the most extreme cases, effectively taking over the work of her failing heart and lungs. For 12 days, machines did everything for her, while her parents stood helpless, watching their daughter fight for every breath. Angelica lay sedated in a hospital bed, wires and tubes covering her body, while medical staff battled minute by minute to keep her alive. At one point, even the most optimistic voices in the ICU started to whisper that she might not make it. And even if she did, there were questions, terrifying ones, about what kind of life would be waiting on the other side. But Angelica's body fought back. Slowly, against bleak odds, she began to stabilize. She came off ECMO. She opened her eyes. The crisis was far from over, though. Her kidneys were destroyed, and she would need to undergo peritoneal dialysis at home for nearly 18 months, tethered to machines every night just to stay alive. But while her physical battle raged, something else was happening inside her. A flicker of hope, a desire to live, and a surprising resilience that left doctors in awe. Her family never gave up, nor did Angelica. Every small milestone, breathing without assistance, standing on her own, speaking again, was a victory. Still, she couldn't live like this forever. A transplant was her only hope for a real future. But with pediatric organs rare and the wait list long, her family made a choice that would change everything. Her mother stepped forward, not with hesitation, but with love, and offered her own kidney. A mother's sacrifice would become her daughter's salvation. On September 13, 2013, a mother gave her daughter the ultimate gift, not just life, but the chance to live it twice. After 18 relentless months of dialysis, countless hospital visits, and sleepless nights filled with fear, Angelica Hale's future still hung in limbo. Her tiny body had endured more than most do in a lifetime, but without a working kidney, her survival remained uncertain. The transplant list was long, and pediatric donors were painfully rare. So her mother, Eva Belando, made a decision that would forever alter the course of both their lives. Without fanfare, without hesitation, she volunteered to become Angelica's donor. The match was perfect, not just medically, but emotionally. The same woman who had carried Angelica into the world would now give her another chance at life from within. The transplant surgery was high risk, especially for a child who had already endured so much trauma. But it was a success. For the first time in nearly 2 years, Angelica's body began functioning without the artificial support of machines. The transformation was almost immediate. Her energy returned. Her color came back. She could finally sleep through the night without the hum of dialysis equipment. She was free. But what no one expected was how that freedom would ignite something deeper. With her health restored, Angelica's voice, quieted for so long by illness, began to blossom. She started to sing. At first, it was just for her family. But soon, her voice carried beyond the walls of her home. The very lungs that had nearly failed her were now producing melodies that would later silence entire arenas. That transplant didn't just restore her physically, it awakened her purpose. And though her body would forever carry the memory of suffering, it now also carried her mother's strength. A piece of her mother lived inside her, fueling every breath, every note, every performance yet to come. What Angelica didn't know then was that her next fight wouldn't be in a hospital. It would be in front of millions, under blinding lights, on the stage of America's Got Talent. When Angelica Hale stepped onto the America's Got Talent stage in 2017, few in the audience realized the depth of the miracle they were witnessing. Just a few years prior, she had been clinging to life in a hospital bed, her future uncertain, her body ravaged by disease. But now, at only 9 years old, she stood calmly in front of the judges, microphone in hand, facing a crowd of millions. And she wasn't there to talk about tragedy. She was there to sing. With poise well beyond her years, Angelica introduced herself, flashing a shy smile. And then came the first note of Andra Day's Rise Up, a moment that would stop time. The clarity of her voice, the raw emotion, the sheer control. It was not the voice of a child. It was the voice of someone who had been to the edge and returned stronger. The judges sat stunned. The audience rose to their feet. And America collectively held its breath. By the time the final note echoed through the auditorium, it was clear. A star had been born. But the moment that would change everything came during the judge cuts round, when guest judge Chris Hardwick slammed the golden buzzer after her performance of Alicia Keys' Girl on Fire. Golden confetti rained from the ceiling, and Angelica's dreams ignited. From that point on, her momentum never slowed. Week after week, she delivered powerhouse performances that belied her age, each one more commanding, more emotional, more fearless than the last. She sang songs by Whitney Houston, Clean Bandit, and David Guetta, tackling ballads that would challenge even seasoned professionals. By the time she reached the finals, she wasn't just a fan favorite. She was a phenomenon. Though she ultimately placed as the runner-up, Angelica had already won in every way that mattered. She became the youngest finalist in AGT history at the time, and the youngest runner-up ever. A symbol not just of talent, but of resilience. Yet behind the glitz and applause, something more complex lingered. How would a child who had already battled death now handle the weight of fame? Winning over millions on national television was one thing. But learning to navigate the world that came after America's Got Talent proved to be a far more complicated performance. For Angelica Hale, life after AGT wasn't a victory lap. It was a high-stakes balancing act between stardom, health, and identity. Suddenly, the little girl who once fought to survive was being pulled in every direction. Invited to sing at NFL halftime shows, honored at charity galas, offered record deals, and approached for acting roles. On the surface, it looked like the dream every child would want. But behind the camera lights and standing ovations was a new kind of pressure. Constant travel, vocal training, long rehearsals, interviews, deadlines, and expectations to perform like an adult in a body still recovering from trauma. Unlike many child stars, Angelica didn't have the luxury of taking health for granted. Her kidney transplant meant a lifetime of anti-rejection medication, strict monitoring, and the ever-present risk of complications. Every performance was shadowed by invisible stakes, not just to sing well, but to protect the very organ that allowed her to be there. And emotionally, the transition was no less demanding. Interviews revealed that Angelica often struggled with the weight of being seen as an inspiration, even when she still felt like a normal kid inside. She once confessed that people only saw the perfect image, never the fatigue, the fear, or the pressure to keep smiling no matter what. And yet, she didn't let that break her. Instead, Angelica turned her platform into purpose. She became a fierce advocate for sepsis awareness, pediatric transplants, and children's health issues, lending her voice not just to music, but to causes that mattered. She visited hospitals, joined national campaigns, and even performed for the Children's Miracle Network and National Kidney Foundation. But as she grew older, fans began asking questions. Was she happy or just performing? Was she still chasing her dreams or surviving another version of expectation? What was really happening when the cameras weren't rolling? As Angelica Hale matured beyond her AGT fame, her journey quietly shifted in ways most fans didn't fully notice. Gone were the weekly primetime performances and headline-grabbing appearances. In their place came a more deliberate, introspective career path, one that raised eyebrows and questions in equal measure. She began releasing original music through her YouTube channel and digital platforms, signaling a shift from child performer to serious artist. Singles like Feel the Magic and Set a Place at Your Table showcased not only her vocal maturity, but a surprising emotional depth, hinting that Angelica wasn't interested in being just a former reality TV star. She wanted to be heard, understood, and taken seriously in an industry that often forgets young prodigies once they age out of novelty. But music wasn't her only pursuit. In recent years, Angelica dipped her toes into acting and voice work, lending her voice to animated characters and participating in short films like American Reject, where she played a fictionalized version of a reality show contestant. Though lighthearted on the surface, these roles often mirrored her real-life experience, performing under pressure, dealing with rejection, and being misunderstood by adults in power. As fans celebrated her growth, some also began to speculate. Was she stepping back from the spotlight? Was her health once again becoming a private battle? Unlike her earlier years, Angelica became more selective about interviews and appearances. Her social media presence turned quieter, more personal, and at times, more reflective. She shared inspirational quotes, behind-the-scenes moments with her family, and music rehearsal clips, but noticeably avoided the non-stop content churn most young influencers embrace. Some took this as maturity. Others saw it as a possible signal that all was not well. Regardless, what's undeniable is that Angelica has evolved. No longer the little girl with the golden buzzer, she now stands as a young woman who has lived through more than most, and who continues to define success on her own terms. Still, fans can't help but wonder, what direction will she take next? And is there a comeback quietly in the works that could surprise us all? Despite her polished public image, Angelica Hale's silence on certain topics has fueled a wave of speculation that refuses to die down. For years, fans have wondered if behind the glowing smile and powerful vocals lies a young woman carrying more than just physical scars. While her battle with kidney failure is well documented, some insiders believe her ongoing health situation may be more complex than publicly acknowledged. Rumors persist that she faces frequent immune flare-ups, fatigue spells, and behind-the-scenes medical check-ins that force her to cancel or quietly postpone appearances. She's never confirmed these whispers, but she hasn't denied them either. Then there's the emotional toll. Being labeled a miracle child and a hero from such a young age created expectations few could live up to. Some longtime followers point to the increasingly introspective tone in her recent music and social media captions as signs of deeper internal battles. Lyrics hinting at pressure, isolation, and reclaiming identity have led many to believe that Angelica may be wrestling with the cost of her own fame. Others wonder about the weight of living with a parent's organ inside her, a daily reminder of survival, but also of fragility. A few online threads have even raised questions about the pressure from the entertainment industry itself. Was she pushed too hard, too fast after AGT? Did the spotlight dim because she stepped away, or because producers lost interest once she outgrew the kid singer label? Even her fans are divided. Some praise her for setting boundaries and choosing a slower, healthier path. Others crave answers, especially as long stretches go by with no new content, no tours, no interviews. Is she plotting a reinvention behind the scenes, or quietly stepping back for good? One thing's for certain, Angelica Hale doesn't share unless she wants to. And in an age of oversharing, her silence says more than most press releases ever could. Angelica Hale's story is not just one of talent. It is a masterclass in resilience, a blueprint of survival etched into the spotlight. From the sterile walls of an ICU to the bright lights of a global stage, she defied medical odds, broke through industry ceilings, and redefined what it means to be extraordinary. But what makes her journey unforgettable isn't just that she survived sepsis, kidney failure, and near death. It's that she turned those tragedies into fuel. Her voice, once almost silenced by disease, became the very tool that lifted her into international fame. Every note she sings is layered with history. Every performance is a battle cry masked as melody. But Angelica's impact goes beyond music charts and YouTube views. She stands as a symbol for every child who's ever felt broken, for every parent who's ever waited outside an operating room, for every dreamer who thought illness meant the end of ambition. Her presence in advocacy campaigns, hospitals, and nonprofit events reminds us that courage isn't loud, it's consistent. And yet, her story remains unfinished. At just 18, she stands at a crossroads. Will she step fully back into the limelight, release a debut album, headline a tour? Or will she continue to carve a quieter path, using her platform to shape lives in ways beyond applause? The public may never know every detail. The medical reports, the mental weight, the moments of doubt, they're hers to carry. But what she's already shown is enough to leave a mark. She proved that a young girl with a failing body could become a powerhouse of hope. That a second chance can echo far louder than a single performance. And that sometimes the most powerful stories aren't the ones screamed. They're the ones whispered behind the scenes. Angelica Hale may have started her journey in a hospital bed, but she turned it into a stage the world will never forget.